Quite easy, and we really hope you would be able to reenact it on your own at home. And we'll be going on to the kitchen to get our red velvet cake on. We're gonna get baking now, and we'll see you soon. So today we'll be making a red velvet cake, which is a very interesting cake because of its intense red color, and it's also quite fabulous for this season of Valentine. So I've got my regular to help us today, so say hello.
Hello.
Right, so we're going to be starting with 115 grams of margarine, which I'm just going to put in the mixing bowl, and we have 170 grams of sugar. So we're just going to cream this until it gets light, pale and fluffy, until everything is properly mixed in together. Right, so the sugar and margarine is now mixed in, so we're going to mix in the dry ingredients before we come to that. So I've got with me here 138 grams of flour, and to that I'm going to add 15 grams of, what's this?
Cocoa powder.
Cocoa powder, there we go. Okay, let's put that in. I've got half a teaspoon of salt, and then we have our baking powder here.
Baking powder.
Yes, I'm gonna add in 1 teaspoon. Okay, and I'm adding in half a teaspoon of baking soda. Red velvet cakes are just such a darling. That red intense color just makes it such an interesting eat. Okay, right, so we're gonna mix all this together. Okay, come, let's do it together. Alright, let's do it. Put your hand. We love to mix. Okay.
We're mixing cocoa
yes,
powder.
We're mixing cocoa powder. Okay, right, so we're going to go back to the margarine and sugar, and I'm going to put in our eggs.
Eggs.
Now, this recipe actually calls for buttermilk, and it's quite frustrating sometimes when you find recipes that you just love to try out and you can't try it because you have you're lacking in one ingredient or the other. Now with buttermilk, there's a substitute for it, which we're going to do now. Now it wouldn't come out the same exact way as buttermilk comes out, but it's a fantastic substitute because it still more or less sours the milk and gives it that tangy flavor. So I've got with me here half a cup of milk, and yes, of milk. So we're going to use vinegar. Vinegar is going to be vinegar. So vinegar?
Vinegar.
Okay, so we're going to use half a teaspoon of vinegar. And this would sort of not just make the milk quite sour tasting, but it would also make it slightly thicker. So I'm just going to put that. I need to be careful. Slowly. There we go. Okay. So now we'll leave that to stand for about 10 minutes. So exit in. Now we need 2 teaspoons of vanilla.
Yes. I say Lala.
Yes, good, good, good. Okay, so 2 teaspoons. You want to count with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so
1
and
2.
there we go. Good. Okay. So that's gonna get mixed in very quickly.
Delicious.
Right. So dry ingredients are going to go in. Now I'm going to add to my buttermilk substitute 1 teaspoon of red food coloring.
Yes,
so I'm just going to alternate that, but I'm going to start with this because that still needs a few more minutes. Okay. Full speed ahead. Okay, now I'm going to add in, this is quite curdled. The vinegars make the milk a little bit curdled, so we're going to get the desired effect from the addition to that. So now I'm going to add in 1 teaspoon of red food coloring. Now you need to be quite careful with this, it really stains. And this is quite thick, so I'm just going to use the knife to scoop it out of the jar till we get our desired 1 teaspoon. Right, 1 teaspoon of red food coloring is going into our buttermilk mixture. So just mix that in. Yeah. Okay, so second batch of flour. mixture is going in. Okay, so always make sure you scrape down the sides of the bowl so you don't lose out on your measurements. Okay. And I'm going to put in some of this to loosen the batter.
What's this red?
Yes. And we'll mix. Last batch. Okay. So this is mixed in. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this in the pan. I don't really like it looking too crimson red because this stuff is going into your stomach, so you want it red, but for me personally, I don't like it too red. Okay, so this is going to go in the pan and we'll be back in a bit. So these are in the pan and we're going to bake this at 190 degrees for about 10 to 12 minutes. Just keep an eye on it once it goes past the 10-minute mark. Now, with red velvet cakes, the frosting or the icing that goes with it, which is quite popular, is the cream cheese frosting. But with, if you look onto the earlier history of red velvet cakes, you find that they actually used to use an icing that is called buttermilk, and others call it ermine icing. So it's basically quite interesting. It's quite different. Obviously, because we have limited dairy resources coming in here, this would actually be a very nice substitute that you can use for your red velvet cakes and other cakes as well. It's got an interesting procedure, so we'll just get started right away. Now I've got 20 grams of flour, which is going in here. Some others call it the cooked icing as well. Okay, so I've got 120 ml of milk going into my saucepan. So I'm just going to make sure I thoroughly whisk that together before I put it on the gas top. And with this, you want to make sure it heats up and cooks till it becomes quite thick and pudding-like. So I'm just going to put this on the gas and make sure okay. So this has been, you really need to keep your eye on this because once you put it on, the flour starts to thicken immediately. So this I will leave to cool because it really needs to cool before we go on to the next step. Now, in order for you not to, for skin, when I say skin, you know, like that Nigerian ogi, you know, that skin that covers the top when you leave it for some time. No, you don't want that skin on here. So you need to put a cling film wrap on the actual icing itself and then leave that to cool, and then we'll go on the next step and come back to this. Okay, so while that is getting nicely cooled, we've got the remaining ingredients which goes in this ermine icing recipe. Now I've got here 115 grams of butter and I've got 100 grams of sugar, and I'm just going to mix that in. Now it's pretty close to your creaming method with your batter, but with this you really need to make sure the butter and the sugar become quite smooth, so you're going to have to give it a few extra minutes to make sure it really creams thoroughly, because you know this is going to be like your whipped cream icing, so you need to make sure this gets properly mixed in. So I'm just going to mix this in for about 7 minutes and then we'll see how so sugar and butter has been mixed in for about 7 to 8 minutes, so it's really nice and fluffy, fluffier than you would go for your cake mix. So I'm gonna, this mixture is nice and cool, so I'm just going to put this in. You can see it's quite, it's like it's got a pudding like consistency. It's quite thick. So I'm going to add to that 1 tablespoon of vanilla essence, and we're going to get this really mixed in thoroughly. You can't compromise on how you mix in this particular icing. You need to make sure it's mixed thoroughly to the point where it looks like whipped cream. So these are out. I ended up baking them for about 14 minutes at 190 degrees. So I'm just leaving them to cool, and then when we do that, we'll come back and see how we pair the icing up with this gorgeous red velvet cake. Okay, so this is our ermine icing. As you can see, it's quite light and it's got the consistency of what I like to, like a thick whipped cream consistency, and as I said, this goes fantastically with your red velvet. So just a little demo here. Let's put that on. This looks so yummy. I can't wait to taste this. Okay. This is going to get quite messy, so let's just have a quick taste. That is seriously good. It's really nice. It's got a tender crumb, and the beautiful thing about this ermine icing is it's not too sweet. It's not as sweet as your regular buttercream. The red velvet cake is just absolutely gorgeous. It's nice and moist, and it's got a fantastic taste. So I hope you get on well. We're trying out this recipe. I'm just going to eat this. Sorry. So until